On today's episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, I'm once again joined by XJ to break down the Knicks coaching search. And did they make a mistake not pursuing Kevin Durant?
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a longtime credentialed media member that has been covering the New York Knicks for 8 seasons now. I'm also the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. In case you didn't know, this is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team at least 5 days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing to both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, we are finishing up our conversation with XJ. In case you missed it, part 1 dropped Thursday. I think people, for the most part, really liked the episode, so I hope you tune in for that in case you missed it. But we're finishing up that conversation by doing a deep dive on Mike Brown versus Taylor Jenkins. XJ, this was not something I knew was going to happen coming to the episode, but I really appreciated that he brought some prep. He gave me the 6 qualities he's looking for in the next Knicks head coach, debuting that. And then we get into whether or not the Knicks made a mistake not going after Kevin Durant. Maybe some of you will roll your eyes at that conversation. I personally think it's one worth having and one that is pretty interesting. Quick final caveat on the episode that aired last Thursday. Obviously, we recorded it before this weekend. We recorded it on Wednesday. So it was before the KD trade. It was before Tyrese Halliburton's injury. So we don't really get too much into those. We're going to talk about Halliburton's injury, its impact on the rest of the Eastern Conference later this week. Hope he heals up. Really sucked, ruined what could have been an all-time great game yesterday, and certainly affects the Pacers next season. So we're going to get into all that throughout the week. But before we dive into this conversation with XJ, I want to remind everyone that this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Without further ado, let's get into it right now with XJ.
I think it's a great point, and it goes back to that intellectual humility argument where I think people just underestimate how many factors there are in knowing a coach is great. Like, obviously, like, you can only do so much with a crappy roster, and I'm sure there have been NBA coaches that in a different context could have gone down as all-time greats, but they were stuck with the Charlotte Hornets for 4 years, and then they just never really got another opportunity. And it's so hard to separate, like, to your point on potentially hiring LaRoche. Like, all right, was it the head coach? Was it the assistants? Was it that the roster jived perfectly with how they think about basketball? How many guys have the approach but don't have the play calling acumen? How many guys have both those things but don't have the soft skills, to your point about managing personalities and managing rosters and knowing when to make substitutions and when to use challenges and can get along with people on a day-to-day basis and not wear them down, which I think this team loved Tom Thibodeau. I have a feeling he's probably a little bit of a grinding personality to be around for half a decade at a certain point. If you're not Jalen Brunson, you didn't essentially grow up with your own version of mini Tibbs in your dad. And it's just, it is a guessing game to some extent, in the same way drafting a quarterback is in the NFL, or drafting anyone like below a Cooper Flag tier of prospect is in the NBA, where you just, a guy can be perfect on paper, and it's just too multifactorial to be like, yep, this is the dude. But I like what you said, and I think I generally agree with it. The fact, and this might just be our personal biases on it and what we feel about basketball, but the fact that he embraces 5 out, the fact that he plays a very deep bench just kind of makes me think like, all right, at a baseline, this guy gets it. And this is total gut instinct on my part, but I just like Taylor Jenkins. I like the way he stands up for his players. I do think Mike Brown and Jason Kidd have similar elements to that, but maybe it's unfair to excuse whatever his shortcomings were in that area. In Memphis, Ja Morant obviously has other issues that I can't really speak to, but I think we have enough evidence of that. I would be pretty confident in him figuring it out with this roster, even though we've both, I know, heard and it's been reported that there are definitive locker room issues there that whoever the new coach is going to have to figure out. I think I could do a pretty good guess of some of the names. Are there any candidates who haven't really like strongly come up in the conversation yet that you would advocate for and you'd want the Knicks to take a look at?
It's tough. I think, like I said, like kind of particular candidates is difficult just because
Sure.
there's so much of a lack of knowledge, especially for assistant coaches.
Right.
Let's say there's a guy I've been looking at is Dave Bliss, who's the lead assistant in Oklahoma City. But, I just have limited information on who's kind of behind a lot of the decisions, and you have to kind of go by word of mouth. And the front office just have so much more information than we have. What I would like to see is really a widely cast net. So I really would like to see the Knicks take a hard look at some assistant coaches, take a hard look at college coaches, take a hard look at European coaches. I just really look like have no stone be unturned. And my concern would be that they're just kind of dedicated and fixed on getting an experienced head coach, someone who has head coaching experience and has coached at the highest level, which I don't think is a necessary prerequisite to be an elite coach and to fit what the Knicks do. So I do have, and I won't have enough time to kind of go through this in detail, but I do have, Gavin, I do have a fully fleshed out framework for what the Knicks should look for in a coach. And especially with the point that the Knicks are in terms of contending for a title. And I haven't shared this anywhere. I haven't talked about this on Hot Hand Theory or anything at all.
Cool. Sorry, yeah. Go for
it. But there are 6 key qualities that I think the next coach needs to have in no specific order, but just 6 key qualities I think that are really important. And I'll just go through them quickly. So just for the sake of time, but modern basketball thinking, I think is critical. They need to fully understand how the game is played today, so ideas and strategies based on how the modern game is played that have built on learning from the past and learning what works and what doesn't. So that modern lens is important. In game and game to game adjustments, they need to be able to recognize when something's not working, respond in real time from game to game. And it's not about, to me, the key point is not about creativity and solutions. It's really about being able to accurately identify what the actual problem is. And I think problem identification is something there's not enough time spent on. Oftentimes we just assume based on prior biases what problems are and then start to implement a solution, but maybe the problems aren't what we think they are. So that's really important towards being able to make correct in-game and game-to-game adjustments. I talked about this earlier. Championship first prioritization. So everything the coach does needs to be done in service of the goal of winning a championship. So you're not trying to maximize regular seasons or any other short-term goal. So decisions that prioritize long-term at the expense of the short-term has to be the way that the coach views things. The fourth one is an understanding, people are going to not be surprised at me saying this, an understanding and respect for analytics. I don't think they need to be a mathematician or anything like that. But they just have to deeply value the work that analytics staff does and of the analytics team. There was actually a recent study from an MIT researcher that showed that teams with more robust analytics teams and analytics staffs win more games. And there's a significant direct correlation between the analytics staff number of staffers and team success. It's a very direct correlation. So much so that each analytics staffer is worth on average about the equivalent value of adding $9 million in player salary.
That's insane. Wow.
It's completely insane. So it is more valuable than most people think by exponentially. And then the 2 last ones, having a roster-based strategy. So not forcing players into a rigid system that they need, they need to be able to adapt their strategy around the roster that they have, the particular group of guys that they have around them. And they can bring underlying principles like the value of spacing and things like that, but they have to be consistent and on the execution being flexible to the team that they have. And then the final one is one that I talked about again, strong player relationships. I think it's really important to be able to build those relationships, mutual trust, especially when you're pushing a new and innovative ideas that they may be trying to push, and asking players to do things that they're not used to or think in a way that they haven't throughout their whole careers. That trust and mutual respect is even more important. So I think those are the 6 critical factors. And I don't know who checks all those boxes to a high grade, but whoever it does, and I trust this front office to do their due diligence, I would be really excited about the hire if they were 6 out of 6.
But before we continue with XJ, I want to tell you about our good friends over at OLIPOP. OLIPOP is a new kind of soda made for people who love that classic soda taste, but want something that also supports their health. With just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can, OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are absolutely loaded with sugar. Like it's honestly a gross amount. 39 grams in a regular Coke, 44 grams in orange Fanta. You seriously, you see that poured out into a cup, you'd want to throw up. OLIPOP flips the script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. My favorite flavor is easily the cherry cola. I love cherry Coke growing up. But the difference is, instead of feeling like sluggish and heavy and just generally gross after drinking it, there's kind of a happy burbling going on in my stomach after I drink OLIPOP. I don't really know how to describe it. For the next couple hours, though, I am feeling great. I'm awake and I'm excited to go about the rest of my day. So if you want to experience it for yourself, get a free can of OLIPOP. All you have to do is buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the 2 coaches that are in the finals right now, Rick Carlisle and Mark Daigneault, and you would say, I mean, that's a lot of what makes them great. And we do know, I don't know if this is still true, but I think at the time Leon Rose came in, the Knicks had, correct me if I'm off on this, I think they had the biggest analytics staff in the NBA, which to me, again, indicates that there is, and I know it's funny, one childhood friend actually works for them. I would love to see if I can get him on the podcast. I cannot imagine that would go down well. But works in the Knicks analytics department, and it does make me think that there are some people pushing for a lot of the same stuff that you're pushing for, and it's hard to check all those boxes, but I'm with you. I would be dismayed. Like, I was a little inside baseball, but I was saying like, oh, when am I going to put out these episodes? We have some draft episodes. I'm like, well, the Knicks could maybe make a hire any day. I'm like, I really hope it drags out, much to the national media's chagrin, much to the Ringer's chagrin, posting just hate mail about the Knicks stretching out this coaching search. I hope they take 2 months. Like talk to everyone, find the best person, because you only get to do this once every couple of years. And with this core, right? Like, I think you guys have been good about this. I've tried to drive it home. Like, we don't know. There might have been a world where, like, this past season was the Knicks window, right? Like, they got a lot of fortunate injury, or I don't want to say a lot of fortunate injury luck. They got some fortunate injury luck from other teams. They got a lot of fortunate injury luck on their own end. Like, it's not a guarantee. You're gonna have another postseason where you have OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns for however many games, 14 plus games, right? Like, that is far from a lock. And you, like, whoever this next hire is, like, Jalen Brunson's going to be 29 years old, like approaching 30 next season. Like, there is not any room for error, I guess is what I'm saying, because you're only going to have so many cracks at this, and it's not even a guarantee. Even if you make the perfect coaching hire, you're going to have a crack at it with a fully healthy team, with an optimal chance to win, with so many other teams. Like, you guys highlighted the Orlando Magic going for it, so you need to nail it. To that point, as we start to wind down here, do you agree with the New York Knicks not pursuing Kevin Durant? I think some people, because they do not like Kevin Durant at this point, which, if you're a Knicks fan, more power to you. Totally fair. I get it. Have been very quick to dismiss it. And it's easy to get the argument, right? Even beyond the basketball stuff and his age and the injury potential of, like, oh, he said no to us. Now that things are good, he wants to come here. It's like we have the high ground now as Knicks fans. And yet, like, I was in Phoenix this past year. A lot of people who listen know I made the move. I got credentials. I went to something like 12 Suns home games, maybe a few more this season. And I'll say this, Kevin Durant at 36 is just flat out one of the 3 or 4 best offensive basketball players I've ever watched in person. Like, still a genius, still scores the ball incredibly easily. Put up just under 27 points per game this year, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 53% from the field, 43% from 3, 84% from the line. Like, he is still just an extraordinary scorer. And I understand the obvious counters that you are, that window that I'm talking about that might already be very thin. You're making it, like, infinitesimally small, because you will be fortunate to get one more season like that from KD, forget about if he has an injury or if he has a drop off, which again, most people his size or just in general in NBA history, XJ, you know, as well as I do, like they are not this good this late in their career. And it doesn't make sense to continue to predict them to be this good this late in their career. So I understand that relative to Cat, even relative to Mikal Bridges, you would be really having a thin window if you go and get KD. And yet, if you're going for that all-in move, if you're prioritizing a championship, I see the argument for going out and trying to get Kevin Durant. Do you agree that the Knicks were wise to not, as far as we know, really entertain this?
Yeah, from my standpoint, yeah, I think they were really wise not to pursue Kevin Durant. I agree with it, and not from the perspective of, you know, getting him back for for not coming when they did want him. But I think where it's really interesting with KD because we aren't seeing a drop off in terms of his efficiency, his percentages, his ability as a scorer. Like you said, like you've had a front row seat to see, you know, how good he still is in terms of his ability to score the ball and what he does with the ball in his hands. We are already, however, seeing a diminishing in his offensive impact and overall impact on the game. And when you start to see that, that is a key indicator to you that some of the other stuff that he does off the ball and things that he does when he's not just scoring it, those are where we're starting to see some regression. And we can only expect that. The guy's going to be 37, you know, early in the season, next season. And he's, I don't know, he would have you believe he's 6'9". He's nearly 7 feet tall. And I just think that I would not want to narrow the Knicks window so aggressively and kind of put all the eggs in the basket of next season for a bunch of the reasons that you suggested. Anything can go wrong in one given season. This past season could have been the Knicks' best shot at the championship for the next 5 years, for all we know. And I just am not going to, when we're talking about risk reward, it's not a high enough reward to pursue Kevin Durant, to assume he stays healthy, he stays as good, he minimizes his impact drop off that we've seen as a pattern for the last 3 years. As he gets closer to 40 years old, it just doesn't seem to be the right course, especially when there's so many opportunities and options, directions for the Knicks to go in. So I totally agree with their decision not to pursue Durant. And I would also ask, is a bit of an older Durant plus Jalen Brunson that much better than Durant plus Booker? Like, I don't necessarily know that. I think Jalen Brunson's better than Devin Booker, but marginally so. So yeah, I just for a lot of reasons, I just don't think it's the right way to go. So I appreciate that they're not going in that direction.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is what you were getting at. Like I don't have numbers to back it up because I need to get a B-ball index subscription, but I don't think you felt him in the playoffs. I mean, literally this year because he wasn't there, but just watching him, like he's not really that titanic force he was early in his career, where he, similar to Steph Curry, just sort of bent games to his will. And the stats in the playoffs are still fantastic. Like I looked them up today, and I was kind of surprised to see, like in that 2023 run over 11 games, he was 29, 9, and 5.5 on 48, 33, 92 shooting against the Wolves. Obviously a short series. I know Cat gets credit with locking him up. He was 27, like 6.5, 55, 42, 83. Like he still puts up monster numbers, and yet it doesn't, I mean, indicative of them getting swept. And by them, I guess I mean the Nets and the Suns, two of the last 3 times he made the playoffs. Like he is just not quite the game changer he was early in his career, which to your point is to be expected. Like that version of Kevin Durant, you sell your soul for. This version, I don't think you can justify it. And I appreciate that they're not doing it. Let's finish on this. Is there a different trade or a specific free agent signing you want to see the Knicks make this summer?
All right, guys, before wrapping this one up, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, hey, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's so easy to lose track. Trust me, I've been there. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and you start building wealth. They offer surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. They also give you all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, which is so frustrating, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. They also offer easy collaboration, managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
Man, I don't have something in mind. I think that there's a little bit of an issue here where one of my biggest issues with kind of going into the season with Tibbs is that I feel like we learned very little about this roster, which is so unfortunate to have had a whole season, a whole 3 playoff series, and then still feel like we don't know all the things that we need to know. And what I really liked about the Thunder's approach was that last season they said, yeah, we could make a trade. We have all the assets in the world. We can trade Giddey or do whatever we want to do in the middle of the season, but let's play it out and let's figure out what we need. And then once we figure out what we need, we can take that information and make informed decisions moving forward. So you try a bunch of stuff, you see what works and what doesn't work, and you see where you need to fill in. And the Knicks didn't do that. So I don't feel like I know exactly what they need. And for that reason, I kind of feel like we haven't seen this roster maximized. Let's get the right coach in place, someone who kind of can leverage the same roster to their best ability, and more so bring in a guy who can help and we know is a super additive player no matter what the roster looks like. And if there was a possibility at all for a guy like a Nikhil Alexander Walker or someone like that who we know is a potentially strong 3-and-D wing, someone who fits right into the makeup of the team, who can add defense, take some of the pressure off of Brunson and Cat on that end of the court, allow for more versatility and deployments. That is the kind of addition I would be looking to make, not necessarily like a big swing deal. Like let's trade, Karl Anthony Towns and a bunch of guys for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who, you couldn't be angry if you got Giannis, but my point is more so that I think that they're a bit closer than people might think based on the results that we saw towards the end of the season. And I definitely think they need to learn more. So I would go with a safe addition of somebody who brings a ton of additive impact, who we know is going to make the team better no matter who's here. Go into the season with that, do some experimentation, and you can always make a bigger deal before the trade deadline as you move forward if you figure out early enough what the actual concrete needs are in a larger scale.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And you guys were always very good about pointing this out. I do think there's something to the idea of assuming you're keeping Cat, surrounding him with, maybe this is obvious, but defense, shooting, and just energy. And there's a reason like him, Cam, and Deuce as a trio. And especially when you mix the wings into that, really any combo of them, even Josh Hart. And even if you didn't get fully 5-out spacing, like there was just some magic there. And I thought at times, and this sounds like a insult to Jalen Brunson, I don't intend it to be, like that was the best basketball they played all year. And those were the most dominant lineups, their most dominant minutes. And like anyone who brings some of those qualities, like Royce O'Neal is a name I've been like, if the Knicks could find a way to get him in, like whatever the Suns trade is, like his a bit, again, another guy just seeing in person. So there's a little bias on my part there, but just seeing him, I came away really impressed with his shooting and just how smart he was in terms of like consistently making the extra pass defensively. Like I don't think he's a great defender. He was a little bit overrated in Utah just because of how poor the rest of that roster was defensively, but just someone who's like smart, knows where to be, plays with pace, plays with energy, and can shoot the basketball, like all fit very, very well around Karl Anthony Towns and allow you to leverage that Cat, like when given room, can be kind of a singular offensive talent. And I think you could build very similar lineups around Jalen Brunson. Maybe some people would argue that's not really asking the right question. And it's who are the 3 guys between Brunson that matter the most. And you assume Mikhail's going to be one. You assume OG's going to be one. And the 5th, we might have our preference, but it's going to be a debate. And maybe that guy is just not on the roster yet. I think that is probably at the end of the day the biggest thing they could solve, that they could find. My last question was going to be if you still think the bones of a title contender are there. You could answer that quickly. I think you've hinted pretty thoroughly that the answer is yes with the right coach and the right approach.
I think they're there. I think they're there. I think they have enough to win a championship if deployed in the most optimal way. And especially if you're talking about bringing in one of those kind of glue pieces like a Royce O'Neal, or, if you can get to the level of a Nikhil Alexander Walker, I think they have enough. So yeah, I definitely still believe that.
All right. Optimistic note to end on. I love it. I think people know, but just in case they don't, one final time, where can they find all your great work?
Yeah, I appreciate all the continual shout outs and relentless support from you, Gavin, for sure. YouTube.com/Hot Hand Theory. Hot Hand Theory everywhere. Social media, we're everywhere. And yeah, tons more content, video essays, podcasts, a bunch of stuff, cool stuff we're planning on doing over the summer. So appreciate you coming to join us and check out what we're doing.
I mentioned it earlier, but you guys just put out a great episode on how Desmond Bane could be a game changer. I was not surprisingly on just because I've listened to a lot. I was on the same page as you guys. I think that was a great trade for Orlando. I'm interested to see how it works out. Everyone should check that out. Check out all their content covering the Knicks and the league as a whole, and plenty more coming on Hot Hand Theory and Locked On Knicks. We'll talk to you soon on both.